Order. This is a hybrid meeting and it is being recorded. From the Finance Committee, I have with me tonight in the room, Dean Nahadas, Tom Parkins, Gar Morse, Maury Creighton, Andy Olderman, Peter Twining, and myself, Sarah Mellish. We also have the Town Administrator, Greg Fetterfield, with us. We have a lot of members of library, ABA, and not sure what else.
Friends of the library.
Okay, so if maybe if we just go around the room and just say who's here, that would be good for the minutes, okay?
Good idea.
Cynthia Gamble, Library Director.
Dave Lumsden, Library Trustee and Chair.
Gary Davis, Library Trustee and Secretary.
Rick Rogers, Library Trustee, Treasurer.
Lisa Bonneville, ADA Committee. Joey Guston, ADA Committee.
Liz Loomis, Friends of the Library. Board.
Leslie Shade here, Friends of the Library.
Jill Linehan, Friends of the Library.
Christian Gall, ADA Committee.
Christy Dixon, Town Clerk.
Thanks. Okay. Just happens to be that the first item on the agenda is to discuss the fiscal year 26 library operating and capital budgets. So if you want to just kind of give us a brief overview of the library budget and the capital requests.
I'll begin with a brief preliminary words. That is, first of all, I'm confession to make. Since I joined the library trustees, I confess we had flooding in the basement, sewer blockage, roof leaks, chimney leaks, a collapsed ceiling in the library, which narrowly missed one of our librarians. And it was consequential. It was over 100 pounds of wet plastic fell on the floor. We had bats, bees, squirrels, and ants in the library. The exterior wall of the children's room, built in '65, is buckling out in several places. We've had HVAC problems. I'm not sure what we resolved as of yet. Incidentally, the flooding problem, which I think I spoke to you all about 2 years ago. Still not fully completed.
Has the sump pump and French drain been put in?
The DPW didn't like the idea of French drain. So they put in one new sump pump, replaced one old sump pump. I've not connected the discharge pipe. Anyway, they go outside the building and probably flow back into the building again. But we're not done yet. My confession includes a broken walkway, rotting windowsills, gutter and drain pipes, trees growing in the gutter. We have technology problems, and we have certainly accessibility and space needs.
I don't think you should be held responsible for all this.
Well, frankly, if I ever had to face Thomas Jefferson Coolidge sometime in the year after, I'd get on my knees and humbly apologize. I've been a very good caretaker. And Charles McKim, our world famous architect, would probably also be very angry about the way we've taken care of his magnificent building. So I seek your help tonight. Help us to remedy these problems. And I'd like to see a liaison from the Finance Committee join us, advise us on a monthly basis, and report back to your own committee the progress hopefully we'll be making in the future to correct these difficulties and to head them off in the future so that we're not dealing with crises. We're anticipating these problems and dealing with them in advance. Cynthia's on.
Hey,
I know you have a copy of operating requests, to which you probably received yesterday or early this morning, a slight change in a couple of the lines that we asked to increase for our operating budget. That is on the page attached to this. If you just got this handout or you were sent, Greg sent out the copies that we sent. You're looking at this, it's the last page. It states those two lines. And that is related to the fact that these came up after we made our submission, budget requests. And it's just a matter of, just having enough money to operate. The building repairs and maintenance line is one of the lines we asked to increase further from the initial request, which we had originally requested $6,000. And I'm now asking that we get $8,000 to handle some of these smaller issues that come up. Most of the emergency things that Dave alluded to are way bigger than being able to be handled by this maintenance. But I became aware this year that we have $4,000 annual furnace bill. That's just for servicing of the furnace that happens every year. So if that's a maintenance cost that we have to deal with every year, and then we add on to that pest control, and we add on to that potable water in the buildings, those three things alone surpass that $6,000 mark. And that means there's not a penny for anything else that happens, and things do happen. We have the light fall down the other day that needed to be put back up. We have right now an electrician coming to look at a door that's not working. We had a door get stuck the other day that we had to have some people come out and take a look at the door. So those things happen, and that's to be expected. But we want to be able to take care of that within our budget line so that when the bigger things happen, and they will, the bats that were mentioned are still there. They're not gone yet. And that's a huge bill that's coming. So we asked last year for money for a conditions assessment of the building so that we could more responsibly plan for capital expenses in the future. And so I hope, going forward, we'll continue to be able to do that. So we will be coming before you each year and asking for a certain amount of capital in order to address these issues before they become a big problem. Yeah.
Is that $4,000 for annual furnace or boiler repairs? Is that a service contract or those are emergency repairs?
No, those are a service contract.
Okay.
And Greg, was the library part of the facilities review that I can't recall whether the library was included, the one we got the report on back in September?
The
All the
master
time.
plan.
The master, thank you, master plan. Is that part of that? I don't remember.
So it wasn't in terms of a recommended expansion. And it identified that it will need significant.
Okay, it didn't go into all the
Didn't-
things we're hearing about.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I can appreciate the litany of woes. They've been addressed as they come up. I think the DPW has been very responsive to those needs as they come up. And we really depend on you folks to flag those and request the monies as the budget process goes forward. So we haven't been seeing those requests. So let's work together on doing them.
And when we look at the facilities budget, a lot of these things are not, I mean, there's a maintenance budget in the library budget as well as a facilities budget.
In the long-term capital budget, they are in there.
They're in there.
Many of these needs are in there. So the long-term capital budget has a little over $2 million targeted towards the library. So we're trying to address it.
And I don't know if this also helps answer the question, but our the facilities budget that's listed under DPW does not include our building.
Yeah, it does.
That was my question. I
Yes, that's
wasn't
what I
sure of
thought.
the answer.
And to go a little bit more, like the DPW has 11,000 for general maintenance, the town hall has 13,000, so the fire department, a lot more than what the library is asking. So, maybe we should rework some of these budgets to try to give more to the library from some of the stuff.
Yeah, the other piece of that is some of the other departments have the facilities budget under facilities and DPW and some maintenance money under their own budget. So they
Yes.
even have more than that.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
don't have the second one and ours is quite small. So it might, it's the nature of having a building that's, was built in the 1880s. We're gonna have significant issues down the lines.
How
But you had an assessment done, is that correct?
We did.
Is that
we did.
completed?
That is completed and it is now online. Anyone who wants to look at it, DPW, I had Nate put it under the facilities reports that were done.
under the
So it
libraries?
is now on the town website,
Town
available for you to look at.
So that's something Nate has looked at, Greg?
Yes,
Okay,
and that assessment's a comprehensive assessment that covers all of this.
Yeah, that's a full building assessment of everything, pretty much everything super. They did not
It's kind of your
do.
wish list.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sets it doesn't make recommendations, but based on the conditions, you can see the timeline. We could make priority lists of what needs to be done, et cetera. Which is what I tried to do when we sat together and created the long-term facilities plan that I gave to Greg for the next 10 years. That was based off of that assessment, conditions assessment, trying to not only determine what things needed to be achieved first, but also obviously grouping things together that alike. So we're working on windows, we're working on the roof, we work on the whole roof.
So the conditions that you mentioned, I'm trying to
their
see,
past history,
sorry,
their past history,
meaning they've been
this
fixed?
list of things.
Some of it's past history, some of it hasn't been taken care of.
Yeah, I'm having trouble distinguishing which is which and where it fits in the longer term plan, the capital I see that's requested. I see a
So-
list of things.
Right.
I'm not sure where they fall in the various.
Well, and I
Lots of
will say
pieces.
we made a change in our capital request. Originally, the capital request, which was part of that 5-10-year plan, we had asked for $270,000. $200,000 was for a window project that dealt with all the windows. However, not all the windows need addressing right now. And so that's the change that we made. And we instead, we did apply for a CPC grant to help address the windows that need to be addressed now because they are rotting. That has not been addressed, but that's what our plan is for FY26.
You're doing the windows through CPC.
We will do those rotted windows.
Therefore, the
It's
200,000.
off the table.
Thank you.
Question. Unlike most other buildings in Manchester, this is a historic building. And I know in the past, we've had some roof issues and we've tried to use CPC funds and there've been some issues with historic renovation versus regular. Maybe it's a question for you, Greg. Do you have a sense of how much of this work falls under the historic that may have limitations versus just plain get it done?
So most of the exterior would fall under the historic.
So that tends to be different contractors and different bidding process. And
Well, there's just typically, it's more expensive.
Okay.
To follow
some
the
of the
guidelines.
materials.
Just to follow up on the history, since I was there
Just
when it
state
all
your
happened.
name, so.
Sorry, Rick Rodgers,
Yeah. you can
library
record it.
trustee. A lot of the roof work other than the recent leak by the chimney, it was in past history, right? The roof actually now is in pretty good shape after the recent work. It's other building issues, and to Greg's point, things that are street facing, right, are where the historic commission gets.
So, has the leak that caused the plaster to fall, that has been repaired?
It has. To give a full view on this, it's been leaking for years.
Right.
If you were to go into the attic, you would see that some of the rafters that are holding that heavy slate roof have been wet for years. It's caused some rot. In fact, there was a picture in the Cricket, maybe 6 months ago, that Cynthia and I took of the rotting rafters. The joists are holding the roof up. The long-term solution is they need some support. So when Rick says the immediate problem's been fixed, yes, but years of damage have taken a toll. Plus, the building is 130 years old. There's no other municipal building in this town that I know of that has that age. Imagine one of our relatives being 130 years old. They need more maintenance and attention.
So there's $750,000 budgeted for roof replacement and repairs in 28. So that's,
Right.
we're trying to address them.
So is Nate working with them on the building, because the finance committee doesn't get involved
I know.
in scheduling when buildings need repairs. So does Nate have a plan for the library?
No, it's in the 5-year plan is what,
Oh,
that, working with Cynthia, that he is
okay,
trying to put together the approach to address a lot of these issues.
So we are still, just to get back again and say, the other part of our request for this year would be the $70,000, which would lead to the planning design of an ADA bath, which, as we know, has been needed for some time, has been looked at already. We stopped that process when we were hoping for a grant that would have helped pay for that and a lot more. We did not receive that grant. So going forward, we still feel it's very important, and that would be our first step, is to make there be an accessible bath in the library. And it's what was done previous was a concept study, which gave us 3 options. One of which was not really an option. 2 of them were options that were not ideal. And what we're hoping for in this design process this year is for them to at least consider an exterior connected ADA library. So it's actually built outside the envelope.
Yes.
If that's conceivable. But we do want to get through the design process this year with that money, whether it ends up being outside or inside, so that we can actually move forward in FY27 for the construction.
Would you anticipate plans or construction plans as a deliverable from this study?
Yes.
and how did you determine that the 70,000 was the appropriate amount?
Well, good question. I'm not sure that I have the correct answer to that, but I did check with Nate. I went to Nate. I said, do you think this? And then we had a meeting the other day with the company that did the initial study. And they are working on a proposal of what they think it would be to create this through to the documents that we should get by the end of the month. But Nate seemed to think that it was probable that we could get through design with construction documents. Probably. If it ends up being the exterior one, we may not have quite enough, but we're not sure about.
So the 26 budget has that 70,000 in the capital proposed. It has 330,000 in 27 for the restroom. That will not be enough if it's if it's an additional footprint. If you're expanding the building footprint, that 330 will not be enough. So that would change things.
So this design would not, you wouldn't be starting until July, right? Because the money wouldn't be appropriate until July. Wouldn't be issuing any type of contract or anything until July. Okay.
Just to go back to the other list we started with, I'm sorry to be a little confused. Are they being addressed in one way or another in various things that we've always provided money for?
That's a very
You
complex
gave me a
question
list,
you just asked.
and which
Sorry,
sound,
Dave, maybe, Sarah Davis, trustee, maybe it's easier to focus on the 5-year capital request. This was sort of part of a more general handout that was meant to give like the flavor of historic and current problems, but we took the conditions assessment and did the more long-term capital request based on that. So it's probably the best resource that has what's reality and what we've thought about. And I think we took the feedback that we should be, really specific for what we think we need in any particular fiscal year. So that's why we focused on this design and I appreciate that it sounds like if we go on the exterior element, we may need to keep the but I think, don't you think, Cynthia, that doc is probably the easiest thing to see. Of course, other than things that will pop up that we don't know about, but the sort of planned need for capital.
Yes, I mean, I do think that, that is something that should be reviewed annually, make sure that that's right, that we're still on track.
Yeah, no, every year we revisit, we revisit the 5-year plan every year to make sure it's.
So that's in the spreadsheet we received in October.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I just want to be sure they're covered in
It's
that
already in the.
period of
Yes.
spreadsheet.
Yes.
All the things you listed, it's all sounded terrible to me.
They are terrible. Are they all covered? Some of them have been taken care of.
I understand that,
Some of them have not been taken care of.
but
they
it
are
wasn't
in
the
the
taking care of, it was providing the money to get them taken care
Are
of.
we proceeding with the plan? That's been the problem all along. The building's been neglected for 50 years. Are we proceeding to take care of it? Yes, on a crisis basis, we are.
That's not what you're telling me. You're telling me you've submitted a 5-year plan,
We have
which
to,
is addressing your capital need.
if we follow up on these needs, yes, that will be the
And
case.
that's not just addressing things on a crisis basis. That may have occurred in the past,
Right,
but that's not the plan going forward.
yeah, and that's, the hope is that we'll do better, and that's the reason for my apology. Does that answer your question?
Maybe.
Yeah, and I feel maybe too. I'm hopeful that. we'll
What
do
I'm
better.
hearing you say is in the 5-year plan, you've addressed these things. They're all yet to be done. Got it. But it's in the plan. We just, as the plan comes forward, we'll deal with the financing it needs.
Yeah,
And-
there's 750,000 in fiscal year 28.
And that is, got some of these issues for that spending.
And
So-
sorry, I think part of the timing in the sequencing was informed by our hope that we would get the grant. Had we known a year ago there was no grant, this sequencing, the conditions assessment, and all that would probably be on like the request at least would be on a slightly more accelerated. So that's why probably, obviously the 70,000 for those studies for the ADA bathroom feels a little lighter than what you'll see in future years, but it's.
And are you comfortable that the assessment addressed all the issues, which is what you based the 5-year plan on?
Yeah, I think it was very comprehensive. We needed it both for the grant application and because we took the feedback that we need to be a little more organized about planning out the future capital requests. And we all sat down and I mean, Cynthia obviously lives this day to day and Nate had looked at it too. So I think we felt good about it.
I'm thinking rotting rafters.
Yeah.
So-
His pictures.
Yeah, and the Tetra, you guys may be familiar with Tetra Tech, right? The town probably works with them. They are a historic architectural engineering firm. They're the ones that did the assessment, and they took a short and long-term view. So get a pretty good view of what we think will be major complications. I mean, they're not going to get into minutia, but it should be a good view of what the library will need.
Can I clarify that the 5-year plan, or not clear on what we're going?
Oh,
That
it
was a
was the
separate-
CIP 26 through 30, fiscal year 26. And I downloaded it to my computer on October 19th.
Okay, I found that email. Finding
Cigar doesn't have it.
And I think the net of all this is, with that done, with that there planned, now we look at things we're gonna do this year, which is where we come to the ADA work. Okay, I just wanted to be sure we closed off or had some plan with respect to the other quote unquote emergency or non-emergency items before we start looking to what we're gonna do to move forward.
We have a plan.
Okay, and it sounds like it's in the planning, so, got it. Now we're talking about ADA, I think.
Actually, Greg, I just had a question. If it's an exterior building, we're looking at maybe 330 to do interior. What do you think the exterior rough would be? 2x, 3x on that?
Probably 2x, if not more.
And that would be off of the new part of the building.
I'm not sure where you put it.
Is
I
there
mean,
room
We're not sure.
Probably the only places that.
to go right where the bathrooms are? Just
Would have
put
to-
an addition out there.
But to go back to that figure that we put in for the amount, the exterior bathroom, that I'm sure you're right. We did have, when we had the initial concept study done for the interior locations, the highest price one, this is a cost estimate, they said we should not use for purposes, but, gives you a ball. The highest one was 170,000. Construction. So my thought,
Few years old, we've
Yeah.
had pretty high inflation with construction costs. So
so that's probably what it would cost now for 300, probably what it would cost for the interior one.
that's,
And then the exterior one would be.
Yeah, I would just preface that by saying that I think the town's come a long way in the last 4 or 5 years by front loading projects with engineering. We've had a history in the past of getting into projects and then saying, oh my gosh, we probably should have thought about this more carefully and revising and revising and revising. And that gets really expensive. So, whenever we're thinking about what's the next capital project, we want to make sure that engineering and the design has been done pretty carefully beforehand, before the voters start committing money to something. And then we're coming back going, well, it wasn't enough. And
I think it's.
what happened here?
So to that end, one of the things that Nate and I talked about when we were putting this last piece together, was that they'll need to look at a concept thing, and then we'll need to assess, because from that concept, is it really possible to put it outside for a cost that we think makes sense? Like, is it gonna make sense to spend $500,000, $600,000 on a bathroom? Or at that point, what we can say to them is, nope, design one of the interior versions. It's going to be a lot less expensive. That's what we will go forward with. And we will have to figure out how to mitigate the displacement that causes, but at least we have in mind that we would be stopping at that point and making sure that we're not spending good money after bad.
I'll elaborate on Cynthia's
Hold
point.
on just a moment. Gail, I don't know, somehow I'm not being able to see people online. Gail has said that Nate has his hand up, so maybe we should hear something from Nate, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I always like to hear.
Nate?
Yeah, I think Cynthia just really covered it well there. I think the general premise that we need to look at, if we're going to be doing or considering an exterior option, there's probably two concepts that we need to look at, and then we can, do the full concept analysis on them, and then cost estimating to see where they come in. If this was a, relatively modern building, it probably wouldn't be as challenging as adding an exterior restroom to this building is, just given the, thickness of the walls, the kind of odd layout in some spots. So it's just not very conducive to easily adding an exterior restroom. especially if we're trying to keep it to the, back and sides of the building where there just really isn't a lot of room. So I think, one of the options that we talked about, as Cynthia mentioned, was just potentially putting it in the director's office and then giving her an office elsewhere, which might give us a little more flexibility on, ADA paths and fitting the extra space, extra exterior space into a spot that, might not necessarily work for a bathroom, but it can work for, her office. But, in general, I think everything that they've already said, regarding the 5-year plan, seems right on the mark. We have a pretty substantial list of projects, and I think it's just going to be a matter of fitting in, what projects should go together, and then using the cost analysis and that we already have to kind of fit into a budgetary number that that we want to spend, over the next X years. Ideally, we get to a point where we are designing next year's project while we're doing the construction of, the current year's or the previous year's design project, much the way that we do, our water main projects.
So you would have good numbers in time for next year's budget?
Oh yeah, absolutely. For an exterior bathroom, I think they would give us, the prior report that they did was very detailed, provided contingencies. So I think it would be much the same. It would really just be a continuation of the previous feasibility study we did that looked at the 3 interior options.
Okay, thank you, Nate.
And I guess as we get in, we'll do design, assuming we choose one of the options, whether it's interior or exterior, as they get into the design, they would do additional cost estimates to, based on a 60% design to really firm up the construction costs.
Great. Rick, sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, not at all. And Nate said in 2 words what I was going to say in 100. Concept analysis, right? Like, so the previous plans didn't have a full concept analysis of the impact, and a little more time spent on that will mitigate town expenditures going forward.
Any more questions from the board on this capital expense? There are lots of people in the room. Does anybody wish to say anything regarding this capital expense? No? Oh, yes, go ahead. Please state your name and address.
Lisa Bonneville, 23 Woodholm Road. I'm here on behalf of the ADA committee as a member, simply to encourage everything that needs to be done to put an ADA accessible bathroom in the library. It's long overdue. I have in my hand the Architectural Access Board regulation on general public toilets. In each adult toilet room, at least 1 water closet, 1 sink in each location shall be accessible to people in wheelchairs, or a separate accessible unisex toilet room shall be provided. You can't make them separate, men's and women's. So, and this has been in the law for a very long time. So, it's an event that time has come. Really.
We're a little behind.
We're a little behind. So anyway, 3 of us are here from the ADA committee, and we're here to encourage whatever in order to make that happen.
Thank you.
Sarah, I just have a,
Yes, Scott.
it might be, I'm sure that the board has considered, or the library board has considered that having exterior access to this facility, the bathroom, could be a useful facility for the town at large. Having my experience on another committee, the Downtown Improvement Committee, one of the things we want to do is make sure that we have public restrooms. I don't know whether that works or not, but it's just a thought. That's it. Thank you.
Yes. Say your name and address.
Liz Lucas, 34 Bennett Street. I'm just here because I'm the principal library board, and I think it's extremely important for the town to recognize the needs that the library has and the treasure that the library is to the town and what services are that we provide. And to let these maintenance issues impact how the library can operate is something that has to be addressed.
Thank you. Now, in this memo, there was one other adjustment to the budget in the, I'm not sure which line it was.
The other
Technology.
yes, was technology, which is called computer replacement, which really should be technology going forward.
Okay.
But we had the failure of a laptop happen after we put this budget in. We don't ask for a ton of money for technology replacement, but as you can imagine in the library, it's quite important for us to keep up to date with technology. And I am working currently on a kind of 5-year rotational plan. So that
So we want to.
So currently it's a $2,000 proposal,
Three.
go to 3,000. Got it.
So the total would go to, total expenses would go to 178,200.
75. 175, 200.
Thank you.
2,000 up on,
Yep,
building,
you're right.
1,000 on tech.
I can't add tonight. And then the 570.
570, 599 is what
Any questions from the board on the operating budget?
No.
I commend you on 2% salary rate. Wish other departments could do that.
I mean, honestly, the only
But-
thing that allowed me to do that was our lack of custodial support this year. But I think that, you know, it worked out and we still have the 3% raises for the staff and all the staff.
We need,
And I'll take the opportunity to echo Dave Lumsden's comments earlier. Meg has been great. And we thank her for her new appointment and service. She's great.
New custodian.
Great.
Took a couple tries, but
Yeah.
couple 3 tries, but we got there.
Whatever, yeah. Didn't strike out.
Lauren?
So I just, Greg, I had a mechanical question. Last year at town meeting, we voted on funds for this grant.
150.
The grant didn't come through.
Correct.
Where are those funds at the moment? Are those falling back to reserves?
It would fall to the fund balance.
Okay, all right.
And was the amount used for that assessment part of the 150 or separate from it? I can't remember.
it was simple.
It was separate.
Separate, okay.
And Sarah, I have a question maybe you can help me with this. Previously, when we talked about the ADA bathroom, maybe a few years ago, we appropriated an amount of money.
There was 250 appropriated and that was sent back to free cash
It was sent back.
because
to
it
free cash.
wasn't used.
Okay, that's the
In
question I
in the
had.
timeline we have for
Fine.
using capital
I
projects.
went back.
So it just went back to free
Yep.
cash.
So we're starting over again. Here we are.
And remember, part of the hope for that procrastination was that the state would pick up 50% of the cost on any addition and renovations that were done on the library, which would have included the bathroom. And probably the roof too. Absolutely the roof. So,
Yeah, that's,
that was our justification. I hope that.
Well, I'm not pressing any issue on that. I just want to know where the cash is. That's all. And Sarah, I knew would know what that.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the total library salaries and expenses operating budget in the amount of $570,599?
You do. So moved.
Peter moves,
Second.
Maury seconds. Any discussion? Take a vote. Dean?
Yeah.
Tom,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Andy, Peter,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Okay, so that's.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Wait a minute, we gotta do the capital item. Do I have a motion to approve the 70,000 ADA restroom design work for the library?
So moved.
Andy moves. Do I have a second? Tom second. Any discussion?
I have a question. It's a repeat question, which is, if you think 70,000 is sufficient to do what you want, that is to come up with a set of plans here.
Nate has, Nate has said
Nate
that.
said that,
So we'll rely on Nate, I think.
because I'm anxious to have you get this done.
Thank you. Me or two. Every young mother with a toddler is anxious to get it done.
Well, Gar as the rest of the population in the community too. So,
Right.
you know, everyone's anxious to have this library.
Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. So you're all set.
Thank you very much.
I just want to raise a question for you.
Uh-huh.
So we had that 200,000 in the capital budget originally
Yeah.
for the window.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that isn't needed for windows.
Right.
One option would be to set aside that money for the bathrooms.
Uh-uh.
I knew you were gonna say no to that. Because next year, when that project comes in at $550,000, I'm gonna be short
Well, we
250,000.
need to look at what other thing that we have ready to go can be put into this year's capital. Not something for the future, but is there some other capital item that we can
Pull in.
pull in this year? Yeah, I'd rather do that, because we've set this policy that we're not setting aside money for the future,
I understand, I understand.
but
I knew the answer to my question, but I wanted to raise it for the fire truck.
Helps to ask.
except for the reserve fund, the fund to the fire. Yeah. Okay.
You love our new fire.
Isn't it pretty?
I love it when they pull it out to the beach parking lot and fire it up. Great.
I was gonna get my cat stuck on the tree.
Well, thank you all for coming. You're welcome to stay.
Or.
Thanks for visiting.
For more visitors than we usually have.
We're so happy. We're so happy to fill the room because we moved the meetings from 7 to 5, so we had more room for people.
No, thank you guys, seriously. Just not even just for the library stuff, for being here at 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Thank you guys. For the support.
We're now gonna move on to the fiscal year 26 town operating budget. And I thought we'd go through it from the beginning. I personally.
One request.
Oh, yes.
Just if we could take up the town clerk's budget first.
Oh,
So
sure.
the student is here. So
Okay, so that's
I'll make a motion.
no problem. Town clerk. Hey, wait a minute, I've got the page number from the original budget book, which is 28, or I have the spreadsheet. I have no idea.
Spreadsheet.
I'm working off the spreadsheet.
So the spreadsheet that was sent today.
Before.
They're the same.
Okay, thank you.
There are no adjustments.
So we have a number of budgets for the town clerk.
Great.
The first one is town clerk, just town clerk's office, I guess it is.
Just town. Just, I shouldn't, but anyways.
Which has 149,976 in salaries, which is an increase of 22%.
So that's boosting the current clerk, small c clerk, from half-time to full-time.
Okay.
So that's why you see that big bump.
And I was in there and she is now a notary.
Yes.
She said, became a notary on January 1st. She was very excited to do something.
So, everything, actually, we've trimmed a couple of budgets. But the big change is that assistant to half-time to full-time.
Now, is she an assistant or an assistant town clerk?
Thank you. That's
She's an
exactly-
assistant too.
Okay,
She's not an assistant clerk.
okay.
Having read what was sent, the town
Right.
staffing, this an area where
Yes, I
we
think
see
down the
something like
road,
that in the near future?
I think down the road, that would make a lot of sense. Obviously, I would object if we did that now, but,
But it's a brand new person.
I understand, yeah.
so, I think it's fine to do it in stages, but obviously if,
Fine. I just wanted to ask, that's
I
all.
think we have a few more pressing needs, and not to belittle it at all, but I think if we can make this change now, I think that's a good step forward.
What's the kind of monetary impact of taking somebody in a clerk, small c clerk position and making them an assistant town clerk?
So typically, it sort of brings it from union clerical
Okay,
to professional out of the union.
okay,
And so you would pay more for
Yep.
that. So, starting out at the low end of the union scale, you're at that low 50s. Assistant clerk, it's going to be closer to 70.
okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, just wanted some idea.
Is there a, added service or what are we gonna get extra for the?
Full
What are
time.
the additional hours for?
Go ahead, yeah, please.
That's the memo.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is that there are only certain functions that she can do now, being part-time, and she covers for me when I go away. So last week, for example, I went to a Masstown Clerks Conference Wednesday to Friday, which Friday doesn't affect business here, but she had to work all day, Wednesday and Thursday, which meant this week she's cut back. And when people are coming and asking for notary services or birth certificates, it means that I'm doing it, which means my plan this week of making election worker schedules and planning my trainings and these more long-term things I haven't been able to do. And so the advantage is that she can cover the counter, the phones, and do that more. And then that leaves me more to do planning and bigger projects. There are also things in the office, like some records things that I would like to work on that just haven't had time to do. So that is really the advantage here. And also just really having someone as a backup in case anything happens, because I myself have been in positions where I've had a supervisor who had to leave suddenly due to heart issues or, a death in the family, things like that. And I want to have someone there to offer those services and who can be relied upon. And it's hard now to ask a part-time person, hey, all of a sudden I need you to be full-time this week. That's not something I feel good doing.
What's the level of people who come into the counter on a weekly or a daily basis? It seems busy.
It is busy.
It's nonstop.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, this afternoon, I primarily was answering phone calls and doing notary services. For some reason, today was just notary day. I don't know what it was. But no, between the collector's office and my counter, I think those are the two busiest I see. It's very regular. And we actually so anyone who Googles Manchester Town Hall, it goes to our phone.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, which is fine, I don't mind. But that means that we are getting those additional calls and then getting people to the right place or finding answers for them. So we have, we really are one of the first points in the building. People either come around the corner to our counter and try to figure out where to go, or they need us, or they're calling us first to figure out what they need. So I would say, yeah, it's fairly busy.
Another area that has increased significantly is records requests.
Yes.
We've heard that from the chief.
Time consuming, and the number of requests, ebbs and flows, but overall the trend has been significantly up.
Do the records requests become simpler if we automate more?
Well, the more we can put online,
Yeah,
the more we can drive people.
okay.
But it takes time to put stuff online
Yeah.
and managing the records. I mean, I think that's really a significant role for Christine's office. She just needs time to do that. And if she's staffing the counter or answering the phone, then that stuff can't get.
Is it worth is it possible that are contracting out purpose to automate mass record?
But we can, in terms of digitizing.
Yeah, I mean, that's an option and that's something I could look into. There's also, a certain level that you can have an intern or a senior person help with that. The problem then becomes access to, they don't have a desktop to work on or things like that. But I do think too, some of the records requests are just one specific thing from 1920. It's like you might not end up digitizing all of that. But we certainly could look into that, but that would be something I need to get bids or contact vendors and find out, it's still a project. It's not.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if it represents potential for some overall savings in time.
Sure.
Going
Yes.
forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely something to put on the list.
Yeah.
Greg, is this, I was wondering, is this sort of the freedom of information requests that come
Yes.
rolling in? So that's been a heavy hit over the last several years. I would think any way to minimize that impact, we should be looking at really significantly here. I mean.
Yes. So we continue to work to get all minutes. So that's a help.
Mhm.
Also, if that's you saying you'll fund it, I'll look into it.
Well, I mean, it's I think a reasonable question, which is, what do we think we spend in your time in a year and what's not getting done? And if we contracted it out to somebody who could take a dent out of it, would we come out ahead of the game in a year or two? It may not break even this year, but this has been ongoing. So how do we get a hold of this thing?
Well, and I've been trying for a couple of years now to try to get like the ZBA app up on the website so that, because they have to go to her, people have to go to her to get a copy.
Right.
And to try to get them up like on the ZBA webpage or something under a street address so that somebody can just be sent there to look.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. So I think the more we can use the website, to get information.
That's
out
the
there,
goal.
more
The more we can put on, the better off we're going to be.
So,
But we're happy to research different
Yeah.
ways to do that.
And didn't we used to have a full-time
Yes,
assistant clerk or something? Clerk, little C.
little C.
Little C.
Yeah, it's always been little C.
Oh, okay.
so on the records requests, the fees were the revenue last year was $385. That's not much. Are we only charging $1 per?
Not even, we're by law.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You can
No,
explain
it's
it.
not.
It's free.
We're allowed to charge 5 cents a piece.
Oh,
Oh, my God.
So,
yeah.
and I think there's a certain amount of, if it's going to be a very lengthy research time, you can charge a certain hourly rate but it has to be of the lowest paid staff member who would be able to do that. So it's not, and that's only if it's a bigger, research project. But in the time that it takes. But I mean, that is a big part, but also so much is picked up with elections, mail and early voting and all of that really is another reason to have somebody who's there full time to be able to help with all of those things.
So voting has become much more involved, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Again, you can explain it better than me, but it's,
Yeah.
the length of voting.
Now.
Yeah, it's not a one-day event.
Right.
It's a multi-week event.
And that's when you really want to have that full-time backup, because if I suddenly go down or something happens, you want somebody who's ready to just go right in.
What voting is covered on the next page?
Sorry, yes, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but staffing wise, it would be the same.
giving encouragement towards technology when you have those choices. So,
Know what percentage of mail-in ballots are returned in comparison to what you send out, or do you not track that?
I did have that number from this past year. I don't have it off the top of my
Okay.
head. But I'm trying to recall. Like, yeah, I don't know off the top, but I definitely have it written down. So
I
I
just
can
was
find
wondering
out.
whether it's a high percentage or a low percentage. or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the election too.
Yeah.
A lot of people this past fall request a mail-in as like a backup.
Okay.
Because if something happens and they may not be able to come, then they'll have one at home that they can have somebody drop off to them.
just back up.
But that does mean we spend all that time packaging it, sending it out, and then it sits, but that's fine if it gives people peace of mind.
Right.
So there certainly are some that don't get returned.
Christine, she can get you that.
Yeah, and
Those
maybe,
stats.
I did put on the election results that are on the website, the last page has
Okay,
how
I'll look
many
there.
people
I can
really
look there. You
voted,
don't have to
how
look
many
it up.
ballots, but I don't know if it has the return rate.
Okay.
Okay.
So do I have a motion to approve the town clerk budget and the amount of total salaries and expense of $159,551?
You do. I would so move.
Second.
Peter moves, Maureen seconds. Any discussion?
Where are you getting that number? Is that all three of them?
No,
That's
No.
just
Oh,
one.
Just page 28.
28, yeah.
Perfect.
Find it?
38,097.
150, 159.
You're on a different page, I can tell by the heading.
It got cut off.
It should just say town clerk.
159,551. Okay,
Okay,
all right.
we're all on the same page now.
Yes.
Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Now we move on to election and registration.
Mm-hmm.
The decrease.
So this fluctuates depending on the number of elections. So this current year, we had obviously local, state, primary, national. So it was a heavy year this year. You came on board during the middle of all that, so you quickly got up to speed, thankfully.
So are we assuming 2 town meetings per year now? Yeah, okay.
Making that assumption.
But you've got a large decrease in professional services. What are professional services for you?
So, ballot printing, maintaining the machines, think of what else there are. There's most of those, but so last year would have been 4 elections and this will be 1. So
Okay,
it should
So
be.
they have someone from the voting button comes out to the site, right?
So for the tabulators for
Yes.
elections, somebody comes and maintains those machines. And then we have to pay, for the programming for all the little memory cards and all of that.
With the clickers, we're doing that in-house.
Yes. That's
Oh,
But there is, if we end up renting any or anything like
Right.
that, which I don't know if people this year.
we'll see what's on the
wouldn't expect
docket
to.
in November. Do I have any more questions on this? Do I have a motion to approve the election and registration total budget in the amount of $28,250?
So moved.
Peter moves,
Second.
Gar seconds. Any discussion? Dean,
yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. I'm so excited to get some budgets approved. Next is parking clerk. It looks like we're paying a lot more for those parking things. I suppose this isn't your area of expertise. It's really the police department, isn't it?
The sticks being those posts that have.
Right.
Yeah, the chief kind of talked about it when he was here. Yeah.
Okay, I thought they were free. Apparently nothing's free.
Well, so we do pay them. They take
Percentage.
they take a percentage of the ticket, but we still have to budget it because it is money going out.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So the revenue doesn't include what we pay them. It's the total.
The revenue is the gross revenue,
Correct.
and we pay out of that revenue.
That's right.
30 grand.
They thought they kept
So
that.
this is assuming additional step as well.
I read something about that. Won't quite figure out where, but as long as it's not in front of my house, I don't have an issue.
How many more? Is that like doubling the number we have or increasing
No.
it by 50% or something?
I want to say a third more maybe.
It's like a third.
Chief was pretty happy.
Yeah,
Yeah, the police department is very pleased with them. It frees up, the physical parking enforcement officer to go other places, so.
and is there a reason why we don't do it year round?
Because they have a minimum charge
Oh, okay,
and,
not enough.
yeah,
Volume.
not enough volume there to.
Do,
Okay on this?
yeah, do I have a motion to approve the total parking clerk budget in the amount of 38,097?
Yes.
Peter moves,
Second.
Gar second. Any discussion? Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Okay. That it? Last page. Thank you very much for coming in, Christine.
One question on the revenue side,
Okay, hold on.
on the revenue side.
Yes.
You looked recently, I know we just asked about the fees for making copies and things, but in terms of revenue in general, there are 8 or 10 things here. We looked at what we charge and whether that's being tracked to anything, what it costs or what where charges are in similar communities.
Well, most of these aren't hers. Public records is.
Yeah.
Oh,
and-
dog fees.
Yeah, well, there's some are and some aren't. I do appreciate it, so
Yeah.
I was just.
Did you ever increase the dog license fees?
So dogs are 20 and 25. 25 if they're not fixed, 20 if they are. That's what I've seen other places. Similarly, vital certificates, $10 is pretty regular. I know some places do 15. I haven't seen 20. But I think $10 is pretty average from what I've seen. I can also check the Masstown Clerks Group is really good at collecting surveys and seeing what other communities charge. So I could see if they've done one of those recently and where we stand. But I mean, dogs I have seen more expensive, but I hate to do that to people. And they're not, the tags themselves aren't too much, although the vendor that we work with just sends some of them out. It might be worth looking at. And then let's see.
Is that
Street lists.
Street lists, that's a good question. I haven't printed them yet since I've been here.
I'm just wondering if what we charge covers the cost.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I can certainly look. I don't know. Yeah, because I'll be ordering those this spring, summer. So I can see, I know a lot of places are going towards having it available digitally and then having a few books. But the thing is, if you print less books, they cost more per book, and then are you gonna just fully charge that to the resident? So that's something I can look at. But I'm guessing based on how much it cost where I was previously to make and to sell them, I doubt that it's covered.
Right, Dean.
does the dog license cover cats or are cats free?
That's a free.
No, nobody.
Realize
Yeah.
that.
So dog licenses is it's a mass general law. There's no law that cats have.
Cats, wow.
And one of the reasons is, have you ever had cats?
In New Jersey though, and we had to register.
Oh, did you? But it's very hard to keep a collar on a cat with a tag, with a tag.
If you just take a look.
I think that's the
all.
historic
Just
reason
asking.
behind
Yeah,
it.
To see them rolling.
Yeah.
When was the last time
Just a
you
question
were-
about the rubbish stickers. That's different than the bags, obviously. These are stickers that people buy to bring things to the transfer station. Okay.
So that includes like a lawnmower and that kind of, anything you have to
Big
get that
things,
little
right?
sticker for. Okay.
And, hazardous waste too? Would that go in there?
We don't have much of that, no. It's more like the metal TVs.
Doesn't Department of Health do hazardous waste?
Once we have a separate pickup, I think.
Yeah. Well,
That's
Down here
under
once a
the
year.
Board of Health.
Under the help.
they have it- I thought pick up at houses now. I don't know. They changed what they were doing.
We did for 1 year.
Oh.
And then that vendor went away.
Oh,
So we're back to bringing it behind town hall here.
okay. Does that answer your questions?
It does, it
Peter?
does.
Okay.
I've just asked that we just take a look and see what's possible.
Now you can leave. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Now we go back to the beginning. Non-appropriated expenses.
Okay.
So at the beginning,
It should be the very beginning.
Okay, I'll take that.
23,
It looks flat.
before it was renumbered.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Correct.
Based on the 23.
page 23.
But
Thank
the
you.
MBTA, if we go to CATA,
The number won't change, but the amount that the MBTA gets will change.
and
So you divert it.
is that a short-term thing or a longer-term thing?
It's long-term.
Okay.
It's in place until you vote otherwise. So.
Okay.
Just like, actually, interestingly, to get into it, it's just a select board vote.
Yeah.
To remove ourselves from it,
Tell me.
from CATA, it takes a town meeting vote. It used to take a town meeting vote to join.
Yeah.
They will just simply be joining.
But what I'm questioning is the diversion from MBTA a short-term thing or a long-term?
It's permanent.
It is? Has it always been there?
The MBTA charge,
No, the
Under
fact
30.
that a portion is going to a regional bus system.
that only happens if you vote to join the regional bus system.
That's voting to have them come and do a
Yeah.
circuit through town.
Correct.
We haven't had.
It's actually.
No, I'm just
it's on demand.
surprised that it comes out of, I just
It's
would
an-
think it would
it's a-
cost more. That's,
Yeah, no, it's an interesting quirk of law.
okay.
Interesting.
You're allowed to divert, you don't have to pay more. I'm not sure why that
It's
ever.
free.
Enhanced service for less money, or same money. That's
Same money.
pretty amazing.
The MBTA doesn't,
Trouble.
well, you look at the history
Yeah.
on the MBTA and that assessment does not
Right.
fluctuate an enormous amount.
No, it grows very slowly.
Okay, do I have a motion to
Well,
approve?
I had a
Go ahead, Dean.
So on the first item, like the, certified for tax title, last year was 7,100. Thinking the 5,000 might be low, or is there a reason?
But it just has varied. I mean, so the year before, we only had 105,
Okay,
so it's
so it's
just,
a plug number. kind of.
it just,
Okay,
I'm pretty comfortable with the 5.
So that's somebody who doesn't pay their taxes for real estate taxes for a certain period of time, and
okay,
then we have to file.
Correct.
okay, so it's, okay.
It's pretty rare in that.
Okay.
Fortunately.
So the 5,000 is probably conservative. Yeah, okay.
Just for the ignorant here, what's a motor vehicle park surcharge?
Yeah, that's a state charge.
I just wondered what it is.
For all our motor vehicle parks that we have in town.
Okay, it's a surcharge no less.
I don't even know how it's calculated.
That's right, it's for 5,000. It
That's
hasn't
for the
changed over
Winter
many
Street
years.
Beach. Mhm.
And have we ever considered not being in the mosquito control?
It does come up.
Yeah,
I think with the return of West Nile
yeah,
and what's the other one?
We don't have any mosquitoes.
equine.
Yeah,
Except-
yeah, thank you.
We don't have mosquitoes in Manchester.
So, every once in a while, the Board of Health does debate that.
Yeah, okay. And Metropolitan Area Planning Council is something we belong
It's a
to.
plug number, and
Yeah, that's,
$3,000.
again, we,
No choice.
that's a bill we get.
Okay, okay, that's why it's not appropriated.
Right.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the non-appropriated expenses in the amount of $299,742?
Sure.
Peter,
I'll second.
Dean second. Any discussion? Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Indy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah says yes. Next is Town Administrator.
Oh, here's the one we want. Yeah.
So there is, a small change. If you go to, it's at the bottom, it's under the IT expenses. We added just under 6,000 to that.
Another 6 from the 598.
So,
What's the number again, please?
so if.
Yep.
So at the bottom.
Yep,
is
I'm
the
there.
IT expenses, the 185,880.
Yep.
We're proposing 190,880.
That's what I have here.
So the new number is,
What you're looking at, the spreadsheet, that the one that was handed out today. Yes.
Okay,
Andrea just gave you.
and that, what does the IT training mean? I mean, what would we be
IT
doing?
It's one of the, one of our needs are to do more staff training on the softwares that we have. So this is an effort to make sure that people are utilizing the software to its at least more fully. I was going to say to the fullest extent, but I'll say more fully. So, it's an area that I think we're a little weak in.
Okay.
I think we can improve some efficiency by getting people more proficient with the software.
And the money we're carrying for town administrator is based on current expenses, not an adjustment for a new hire.
Correct.
Okay,
So we did advertise it at 180 plus or minus.
okay.
You know, depending on the experience and.
Was there any option of hiring within? Again, want to take your.
So yes, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So that'll unfold as the process goes forward.
Yeah. That's a mantra I have of trying to keep our costs under 2.5 is if you have more people wear more hats and, hire within. If we have a 10-year veteran administrator, we're going to go to a first-year veteran administrator. I would think we could maybe cut that, but I don't know.
Yeah, but my concern about that is in a town this small, I don't think we have the support to mentor somebody who hasn't been a town administrator. I think that's very difficult. That's just my personal opinion. That I think that, I see a certain value in having some experience. I think it's easier in a bigger place. You don't need as much experience because you got an assistant town administrator. I mean,
more backups.
Yeah, it's just, I just had this conversation with a bunch of my colleagues.
Yeah,
About the extra challenges of small towns.
yeah.
It's,
You have a town meeting to deal with. Yeah,
you wear more
Random
hats.
volunteers.
You wear more hats.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't
you
have
do a lot
you
of
don't have as much
volunteer.
specialization,
Right, yeah.
Right.
No, I think.
but you have a lot of the same issues.
Well, I know our goal for the year is to not have a override that if the school goes over 3.5%, then we can use excess levy capacity. That was the
Well,
goal for the budget this year.
I'm not in favor of using excess levy capacity for the schools.
Anything over 3.5% is what I'm saying.
I'm saying.
I don't think it's gonna be that much.
My position, well, I just got something through that it is.
It is.
My position is we have the excess levy capacity because we cut back on town expenses. And I think that we need to chip away at that excess levy capacity for town expenses. And that if there's, the most recent thing I got from the school district with the 26+ increase in health would be a 3.45% increase in our tax rate for the school. It's 1.1 million. And that could change because I was told the school committee had not agreed to eliminate that principle, but that what was presented to us had not been voted on by the school committee. I didn't realize that. I may have missed it. But so who knows
Haven't seen that one.
what?
They'd seen it.
They'd seen it, but they hadn't voted on it.
Hmm.
I didn't understand that. I assumed that they had, endorsed it. But
It would be nice to see where all these numbers are going right now because they all seem to be going up. I know we started with a 1.68% increase, but we've gone nowhere but up. Through the
So
process.
it's about 3.25.
Yeah.
the town,
With assuming the school is at 5.4, which is a little low, I think.
yeah, what we got today,
Um,
and I printed it off somewhere here.
But I think you're gonna be around 3.5.
With the new assessment, it was 6.98. With the new equalized valuation and the higher amount for healthcare, it was 6.98% increase for Manchester, 1.1 million.
At the 27%.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
I think they will do better than 27%.
right.
Oh, that's not a final number.
Yeah, they're
No.
going out to bid.
They're going out to bid.
They're seeking other quotes.
Hopefully going to Maya.
But, and I don't know how this compared with the other budget that was shown to us. I just got it this afternoon and I didn't compare.
I think the only difference is that health insurance.
Do you? Okay.
Does the town have a protocol for purchasing health insurance, either for the town or for the school, as to the system, or do they have a tendency to go back to the same vendor year in and year out and sign a longer term obligation? And I'm curious about the size of the pool that vendor has access to. Because if you have a pool of one and you have a bad sick year, your premium's gonna be mighty high. But if you
So-
have a
so the-
pool of 1 million,
The town and the school have taken different approaches to that. So the town has been with Maya for decades. At least 2 decades. Maya is the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association. It's a very large pool. It's hundreds of thousands of lives. And so Maya rates you in a hybrid fashion.
okay,
So they buffer you at the high end and the low end. You're not gonna be, your lows may not be quite as low and your highs aren't gonna be quite as high if you're on your own. But then you look at your own utilization rates. So this year, the bad year, for next year, Maya had a range of basically 10 to 20% increase. The average being 15% hike. And then, so depending on your individual utilization rate for the past year, determines where you fall in that range. So the town this year, I was a little surprised because I thought we were.
Better than we are.
Yeah, our utilization has been doing well. I haven't had the sit down.
it's been pretty low.
Was
Our
that-
utilization of insurance.
Right, we were running pretty good. But they came back with a 16.4 hike for us. I really thought it was going to be below 15. I was a little disappointed in that. But I'll be sitting down with our rep in the next week or so to hear more details. So the school on the other hand has gone out to bid every other year practically, switching carriers frequently. they were able to take advantage of that. They were on the winning side of that for a few years, but they've had a couple of really bad years. And this is being one of them.
Rick, do they lean away from Maya? Or they tend not to
They're
think
not
Maya's a
in-
good
They're not
choice?
at mine.
Oh, school systems are not,
They
They can
can
be.
be, they are not.
I know that, I know all about it. I was curious. They've changed from time quite often, I think you just said. And I
Right,
wondered, but is Maya one of the ones they've considered?
yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they're looking at Maya possibly. Maya's not interested in a one-year deal. They want a commitment. That's, their model is a little different.
Yes,
They-
I can understand.
So.
What's next on
Select
this?
board,
Okay,
we haven't voted.
yeah. Do I have a motion to approve the select board budget in the amount of 600, or did people have questions on any other of the line items? I'm sorry. The
I
only
have a
thing that
question on
went up was
I have a
the
question, Rick,
newsletters.
on the HR service. This is the the cost for the 3-town service. Having read the recent report today,
This needs some attention.
yeah, I did.
Um,
Is this something this is not getting attention? Obviously, that's a future item, but I gather.
Yeah, we
Seem to be
had a
very high
long, we talked
priority.
long, and we talked long about it today.
Yeah.
Andrea and I did, trying to think of if we should do something for this coming year. We basically thought we needed to do a little more homework and look at some other options. Um,
You got quite a bit of emphasis in the report, and I was just
Yes.
curious. Yeah.
and I agree that it needs attention. It's just like, there's some options for us I want to explore. And maybe we'll try to get that to you in the next 2-3 weeks. I'm precluding it changing for 26. But I'm not prepared to tell you a definitive recommendation tonight.
I certainly think that HR is much more entities than it used to be.
Yes, I agree. Very wholeheartedly.
Rick, can you just tell us a little bit about the grant writer special projects or specific projects? What that is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and what sort of guidance is she getting? Is this mostly sort of the boilerplate aspects of grants, and then the technical portion is farmed out to Nate or fire chief, or how does that fit together?
She spends a lot of time searching for different grant possibilities.
Mhm.
If a department hears about something, they'll ask her to research it to see if it's something that's viable for us. And then, yeah, so she's sort of the quarterback in terms of assembling all the needed information.
Oh.
So, yeah, if it's a DPW related potential grant, Nate or the engineers that are consulting engineers will write the technical aspects. She'll make sure we have the letters of support. She'll make sure that I'm reviewing the budget, that sort of thing. So she's playing that role, of pulling everything together, but also identifying potential grant.
Mhm.
And then once we get a grant, helping to make sure we're meeting the reporting deadlines and filings and that sort of thing. There's a fair amount of work related with that. But I also am pretty pleased with the successes we have had. We're 23 million in grants over the last 10 years. And so it's been very helpful.
What would be helpful is if we could take one of these 3 positions and combine them into 2 positions, if we could. I mean, it
Well,
just
that's not
seems,
what the report we got was
Yeah, that's not what the
recommending.
board's doing.
Yeah.
These are different skill levels.
It's really, yeah, so they are unique skill level. So it's just a different skill set. Communication certainly is a different skill set than grants.
shouldn't the assistant do the communications?
No,
I mean-
the MBTA zoning,
Yeah,
the thing that got that over the starting line
Yeah,
and
At
what
the
the
finish
town
line.
supported
yeah.
was the communications person who had all of the ideas and made sure everything went through. She contacted all of these groups in town and said, oh, do you want somebody to come explain it to you? And I went to one of them and I was just surprised that how much people learned. So it's not something that the assistant to the board or town administrator could do. It's a specialty. And keeping up the websites with all that information.
Well, we had a 20 grand increase last year, and we're gonna do another 10 this year. It's just, it seems like it's spiraling out of control. And I don't see the added service.
Well, those are just the standard 3% increases.
Right, well, I thought the standard was 2.5. But
Not
that's
this year.
not,
Not this year.
yeah, I again,
Well, 5,300 of that's a town administrator. It's not those other positions.
Yeah, I have to echo what Sarah said about communications. That if we had hired someone on the outside to do what Tiffany did to get the MBTA zoning thing over, and they had sent us a bill for $85,000, I would have said, no, probably reasonable. I mean, it was that significant, hands-on all the time. Believe me, she really pitched in. And maybe she's unique, and maybe we'll never replace her. But it was worth it. And if you consider the cost, just the legal cost, if we hadn't passed that whatever it is, the thing in the town meeting,
It
and
was
we've
well
been
done.
sued by the Attorney General. Oh boy, talk about short money. This was
And
a bargain.
I think we need to use it more
Yes.
when we have things coming before the town, because people are very uninformed. And things just go wild on social media.
They're misinformed as
Yeah.
well as uninformed.
And-
Yeah, which is.
You know,
I think that pertains to us also in the coming town meeting in terms of what we're talking about.
I think that when we have sensitive things, it needs to be appropriately communicated, yes.
And we've been talking about.
We brought that up in the fall. We
Yeah.
talked about that.
Yeah.
Greg, are these all basically about half-time jobs, roughly? Or they all vary in hours?
No, three full-time and one 24 hours a week. So the grant coordinator is 24 hours a week, and the others
are full.
The others are full-time.
No other questions on this?
Anybody else have any questions on this budget? Do I have a motion to approve the select board budget in the amount of $664,515?
Yes.
Second.
Andy moves, Maureen seconds. Any discussion? Vote, Dean,
no,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Gar, Maureen,
Yes.
Andy.
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes, so that's a 6-1 vote. Okay. Legal and other professional services.
So this is showing an increase. We were doing so well on legal up until a couple of years ago. And it has really shot up. So some of that is absolutely attributable to the 40B project. Certainly in the last 2 years, that has accounted for the majority of that increase. But we are seeing a higher use just of regular use.
Attributed to.
There's more appeals happening. conservation and ZBA.
Nice thing about ZBA is they changed the law in, I think it was the August thing, it was August or November, where it's much more difficult to appeal ZBA ruling.
Yes,
So hopefully that will help us.
should help some.
Yeah.
And
And also the zoning changes that have been made.
the zoning amendments are taking a lot of legal guidance. And, you know, the MBTA zoning took quite a bit of legal time and effort.
Zoning changes related to the planning.
Proposed zoning
Yeah, yeah,
changes,
yeah.
yeah.
The
Proposed
AD,
amendments.
we've got the ADUs coming up.
So we haven't done, yeah, I don't see that slowing down, I thought, for the time being.
That's been a real tripwire. It's a lot. It's nice to see some
Given all
progress.
that, how realistic do we think the 135 is? I mean, is that, for you all who are more informed on terms of the amount of, I don't know, appeals and the like, having spent 239 last year?
So that was very unusual, that was.
I
that's
do
40.
appreciate that was, yes, that was unique, but I'm just asking, the 135.
The appeal of the 40B, they filed an appeal, but it looked to me like nothing happens until April of 26.
So it sits.
Yeah, so I don't expect that to
And
be,
it's all on the record.
yeah.
So we have, you'll see a request for reserve fund this year, to fund our legal expenses. Because we do have in the 25,000 range, just for that, appeal, filing the appeal. And the MBTA zoning, et cetera, we're definitely running high this year. We won't have enough at the 150, the 100, I mean.
But
Do
it
you think
seems
the
like the,
135 for 26 is a fair guesstimate?
It's a fair guesstimate. I'm
but it's-
not confident that that'll be enough, but I also think it's okay and
it seems
I
like
wouldn't be
instead
surprised
of-
if you tapped your reserve to help with that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like each year we don't over speculate on it. We pick a number. And then usually the finance committee is able at the end, within the last 2 weeks of the year, to sort of fill in around the edges. And I guess the question is, if that strategy, if the differential exceeds what we've been able to do in the year past, what's the mechanism for dealing with that? Can we pull from other town hall budgets, or what
Some
do we,
things that's underspent, yes,
what do we do?
but we can also, as we get closer to town meeting,
Supplemental appropriation.
we'll do a supplemental appropriation, yeah.
What I would really like to see in the legal expenses is that every board and every department that's using the legal services knows the amount they're using.
Right.
Because I see nothing on the ZBA. I have no clue.
Yeah.
We could be spending 5,000, we could be spending 50,000. I just don't know, and I think that's true
Well,
with planning board and,
So the bill we get is itemized, so we can easily do that.
yeah, I just think it would be really helpful to just raise people's
Yeah,
awareness, because I think there are
that's a good
some
point,
people are very quick to say, let's
yes,
ask town council.
right,
And I think
and that has grown, right?
Yeah.
I tried to
there's
keep a lid on that, but it's been harder.
enormous value to seeking town council in advance of getting in trouble. Like, I think they should be involved when we have zoning changes. I look at some of our zoning that's out there and it's really, really bad. And it's more complicated today, so.
I don't know if it's possible, Greg. I've been on this committee long enough where when I joined, we actually had a roll-up of all the legal things that were currently running.
That's right.
Yeah,
And I will say at one point it was 14. And in fact, I think having the selectmen and particularly the FinCom looking at that, not using 111 as an example, it was like, this thing on Forster Road has been going on for 7 years. Let's end it. And it really became rather than just kind of slicing ourselves with paper cuts. It became a, let's get it done. And I wonder if maybe, I don't know if it exposes too much of what would happen in executive sessions in different places, but I don't know. It just seems like a roll-up of these numbers would
The
be
dollar amount
helpful.
we're spending on
Yeah.
the various
Yeah.
cases.
I mean, that,
I certainly agree with
those
that.
summaries are public documents.
I would think. it
And
would be-
they're generic, I mean, they tell you.
Right.
The case, which are, cases are public, you can go to
Yeah.
the court docket and see what the case is.
Yeah.
Um,
I do think it would help us,
So what do we want to get that quarterly?
quarterly would be ideal.
Sure.
But I mean, I think if we start seeing ZBA stuff loaded up right and left, then we'd probably say, okay, is town council,
Helping up
are
front.
we efficient
Yeah.
enough on ZBA things from this firm to do this? And if we see a lot of, animal control things or something, we deal with that more on the front end than the back end, so to speak. And I will ask my question about building inspectors, because I don't know if some of these things are coming around to haunt us on building permits, okay, low, all right.
Yeah, pretty low on that.
That appealed to the ZBA. If somebody has an issue with the building permit.
We have,
And I think there's been
it's less than a handful.
one maybe.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, we've had appeals of,
So we're doing fine with our inspector and all that jazz.
yeah. We had the guy that wanted a variance, we denied it, and I don't think that garden shed has ever been pulled down, and I think that's.
Nope.
It's
Still there. I walk by it frequently.
I'll have to send something to Paula Randall.
Not up to speed on that one.
16 University Lane, there was a garden shed that
Or was it Jersey Lane?
Jersey Lane, yeah.
Thank you.
A garden shed that was quite elaborate, erected
On the street.
on the street about 1 foot from a fire hydrant. The building inspector notified him it had to be removed. There was no building permit issued. And he came before ZBA and we denied the variance because it was a 2.5 acre piece of land. And there were about 4 driveways in it, and there was one to the right that was very suitable to put a shed that was off the road. And it's never come down. Thank you, Gar, I've been meaning to check it out.
We
I
did
get
a
so
lot.
irritated when I walk by there, I don't walk by there.
I don't
in the
blame you.
winter. Okay. Any more conversation on legal and professional services?
Do we have any professional services targeted? Any studies?
No, nothing specific at this point. It's, but typically something comes up.
Can you just give us examples of some things that come up that useful?
So if we hadn't gotten the state grant to do the operational audit, that would have been paid out of that.
Okay.
We sometimes will need some extra consulting on a human resource issue. So that would come out of there. Sometimes that's legal, sometimes it's not.
Is it stuff that's approved by the select board or is it just a blank? Once it's in the budget, you're free to do whatever you want with it? Or
No, select board, yeah, they approve.
it's contingent?
Yeah.
Any other question?
The report we got today was excellent. I thought that was a very good report on operation.
Yeah.
Interesting read, interesting read.
Yeah, I thought it was very.
I think you got it right for the most part. I'm anxious to have a more in-depth discussion with all of you on it.
Like a motion? to-
Yeah, motion to approve the legal and other professional services budget in the amount of 185.
Yes.
Peter moves a second.
Second?
Gar seconds. Any discussion? Vote. Dean,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Gar,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes.
Sir, could I ask a question about revenues? Just because it's always actually useful to ask about revenues. I know they are dominated by some of the rental towers here, but Greg, is there anything we should be thinking about in terms of changing in any of these fee rates and so forth? I know there's just a wide variety here, everything liquor, taxi, and all the rest.
Yeah, I have to ask Debbie about some of those licenses. Some are state dictated and some we have flexibility on. As I sit here, I'm not gonna recite which ones are which, but.
I mean, they're dominating.
We just submitted something that would allow towns to increase, it hasn't been approved yet, allow towns to increase the meals tax, I
Yes.
think, and the short-term rental tax.
Correct.
I think
That's
so.
part of the, what's called the Municipal Empowerment Act.
Okay,
2.0, they filed it last year, it never went anywhere. So they have refiled it this year. I'd encourage all of you to contact Star and Margaret Ferrante and encourage them to move that bill along. There's some good pieces in there. It gives us a few more tools.
yeah. But certainly $35 for a one-day liquor license seems a little cheap.
Yep, that one stood out. I agree.
It makes it about that much.
That's 2 drinks.
Yeah.
There's nothing that jumps out straight here that needs
The top
some good
item.
thinking, I gather.
That excise, is that Airbnb or is that like Tux Point? It's just Airbnb stuff.
Yeah.
It's not Tux Point or anything like that.
No,
Now, I think that what happens here is Airbnb and VBRO or whatever that is, the platforms that do short-term rentals, I believe that they have to pay the town's assessment to the state and then the
Correct.
state pays us, right?
correct. That's exactly right.
That's the only reason we receive it. It's because the state's collecting it for us.
So the revenues for Tux and that stuff would be under facilities?
Probably under Parks and
Yeah, I
Rec.
think you see that in the
Correct,
parking lot.
correct,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask.
And we still have an in holder?
Yes.
The old corner?
No,
No.
No.
that
Is it down on
use,
Summer Street?
that use has expired because it wasn't used for over 2 years.
So the cell tower, is that 2 or 3 cell? Is it just the one at the dump and the one? up
There's
with-
3.
Yeah, okay, so the one at the boatyard isn't?
No, we've got the water tower, we've got the one up on School Street and the one at the,
Oh,
at
Police
the
station.
old dump.
no,
The Marino, that's a private.
that's a private one. Did they need a permit or a fee or anything?
But yeah, they went through a permitting
Yeah,
process.
wow.
It was quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
Before my time.
Oh, no, there's a new one. There's a great big new post up there. It's,
Where are we
I
talking?
think it's a 5G tower
We're talking the boatyard, or are we talking about?
in the water. Next to the drawbridge. I see it from my house. It's new. It wasn't always there.
Oh, I think that's part of. improvements.
Could be.
Yeah, it's part of the positive.
I had
change.
heard it was a 5G tower, but I don't know.
I think it's.
That was social media.
Yeah. That's part of the positive train
Okay.
system.
It's really cool.
Yes, but
Yeah.
it's MBTA.
Okay.
I mean, they're putting these up on 128 to monitor traffic in various places. There's one by Pine Street. It's all the video cameras to look up and down.
Yeah.
Big brother.
Okay.
What's next?
Finance committee.
Oh, them. Oh, yeah, that's it.
There's the budget right there.
All right, there's a budget number.
So. The thing that bothers me on this, and I thought we'd talked about it before, was I wanted the salary reserve fund eliminated.
Yeah, that's for contract.
Oh, yeah, that is.
Okay,
Yeah, that's in the one that you got sent today.
No, it's still in.
No,
Yeah,
still.
I would.
Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot to take it out of the finance committee
Yeah.
page that I
Okay.
sent out earlier today, but I did put those amounts into the salaries in that spreadsheet.
Fantastic.
They've been
Thank you.
distributed, so you can just put a 0 there.
Okay,
Yep, sorry about that.
great. So do I have a motion to approve the total salaries and expenses for the finance committee in the amount of $5,300? Andy moves. Do I have a second?
Yep.
Maury seconds. Any discussion? Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Tom,
Yep.
Don,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter, and Sarah votes yes. And do I have a motion to approve the reserve fund in the amount of 150,000? As I recall, we used it all last year, what we had.
And then some.
So moved.
Andy moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Maury second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Uh,
Everyone? Aye. Okay.
That's what you're asking.
Done, town clerk. Okay.
So here you'll see a change from what was in your books. And a couple of things happening here. One, some of that reserve salary is allocated here. And then you also see in what was sent out today, adding that accounting clerk. So this is one where we are showing, or acting on one of the recommendations in the audit. So the boost to the town accountant to move formally to the finance director role, that was paid out of that reserve money that we had already budgeted, boosting the assistant to the accountant to an assistant accountant, and then hiring a new accounting clerk. So in order to allow Andrea to take on the finance director roles, we need to provide some relief in that office. And so a way to do that is to hire the accounting clerk and also to improve some of the processes and trackings of expenses. And Andrea can speak to this at length as well. But this is one area where we're recommending going ahead sooner rather than later with one of the recommendations in the report.
You have comments, Andrea? Since you're on the
Thank you
hot.
for the explanation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's exactly what Greg said. As soon as I can take over some of the more finance director roles, take some things off the town administrator, Greg's plate, as far as like budgets, things like that, and having an assistant town accountant instead of an assistant to the town accountant, I can give her a lot more responsibility. She can sign off on warrants for me if I'm not in. There's a lot of things that she can do that she's not able to do right now. So it's like a good backup as well. And it would just alleviate, and we can do a lot more and assist with that. Having an accounting clerk, talk to, treasurer collector's office as well, and they could assist in that area as well. And just help with the accounting, take some of the pressure off the assistant town accountant. And it would just be a lot better to have more of like a managerial position under the finance director so that they can handle a lot more of the accountant duties.
Who will the position report to? The finance director?
Yes.
Isn't that what the treasurer does?
I'm sorry?
I mean, it seems like this would take
The
some.
treasurer would report to the finance director, is that
Correct.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
So the idea of the
This is from
finance.
report. Yeah.
So the finance director would supervise the treasurer, the assessor, and have not that Andrea already does quite a bit, but have even a greater role in budget formulation, working directly with the finance committee, So one of the things that we've been debating for years is, should the town go to an assistant town administrator role or not? And we debated that with Bill Keegan, who did the operations audit, and came down on thinking that, no, we're better off having less of a flat organization and creating more structure and more depth, having fewer people report to the town administrator. And one way to do that is to create the finance director role and having that person supervise these other positions. And also have the two folks that are in my office, Debbie and Sue, take on bigger roles as well. And doing that avoids, we feel, hiring an assistant TA. And so put a little more responsibilities on people that we do have, boost their pay a little bit, but avoid the full-time assistant TA.
So will there be cross-training between the accountant, the treasurer, and the assessor? Because they're pretty thin on backup, is what I'm thinking. So, like, will the clerks cross-train? What will happen there?
Yeah, can you speak to that, Andrea? So to some extent, there are some limitations in terms of, what's the word I want?
Segregation of duties?
Yeah, separate, thank you.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So anyways, if you want to speak a little to that, that would be helpful.
Yes, I would love to have like that specifically that accounting clerk would be able to go between the departments, be cross-trained, be able to cover anyone that's out in any of those three offices. I would have to, obviously be careful of the segregation of duties. Like, if they were to help out in the treasurer's office or the assessor's office and collect money, for instance, I can't have them posting to the general ledger all as well, because there's no separation to check to make sure that, what you collected is what we're actually reporting. So there's like some things like that, but I think we can mitigate that having the assistant town accountant somewhat cross-trained, but really having that accounting clerk cover and be able to help out in those three offices would be very helpful.
So what's happening in the assessor's office? I'm a little confused. I thought that there was a clerk for the assessor, but I'm hearing that the person who's there is still doing all of the building permit stuff.
So we've been slow in implementing that change.
Okay,
With the new land use clerk
okay,
full-time getting up to speed. That's the third area. So we started with getting up to speed on planning, then ZBA,
okay.
and now the next step will be with the building inspector. So yes, and again, the audit report sort of reinforced making a better separation there, and having the assessing clerk focus more on assessing, not on the building inspector. So that is in the works. Over the course of the next month or so, that should be fully operational.
Might want to wait more than a month.
So going back to the finance director, we've now reduced by 2 the number of reports to the town administrator. Because one of the important comments was 3.
Two.
Yeah, I was just trying to think. So the net of these changes as it relates to the town administrator is 2 fewer direct reports.
Right, with this, yes.
Yeah.
2 fewer direct reports and a beefed up role to reduce some of my involvement in the budget development, the TA's involvement.
And so as a function of the finance committee, we're likely to see Andrea sitting in that chair next year as opposed to the town administrator?
It may be both.
Oh, okay.
There's sort of here now eventually.
She's on mine, I know. Yes.
But so that's, I don't want to speak for my successor, how they want to handle that, but
that would be one of the possible implications.
Yes.
I'm gonna go back all the way to the HR for just a sec. I hope you'll feel in a position we can talk again about that. It was just such a major point in
Yeah.
that report.
Well, I've got some meetings next
Yeah.
week to pursue some options that I want to, just like to get a little more information before I present.
You're nipping off, I think, some very key recommendations that are good from that report.
So yes, well, I'll make sure to
Yeah.
get that information to you soon.
So
Yes, Dean.
is there any way, I mean, looking at 42%, I mean, I could see, given the accountant and the assistant, the boost, and maybe putting off the clerk, or if you do the clerk, can we cut back on the raises? I mean, it's just to spread it out more. Like, can't we go back to 2.5% for the raises if we're gonna add a clerk? I mean,
Yeah,
to
but
look
a
at the whole
finance
pie.
director with two people reporting to them is a significantly larger job.
Is it, or
than
are
just
they
being a
having more
town
work
accountant.
done by the clerk? I mean, more of her work.
You've got somebody managing people.
Yeah.
That's-
I get it, I
That's
get
a
it,
big job.
I get it. It just seems like an awful high bill. 42% in 1 year.
It is a lot.
What,
But I think that report indicated the need for it, and I think the problem is the town administrator has way too many people reporting.
Yes, awesome.
And what the report, how I interpreted one portion of the report is because there's so many people reporting into the town administrator, you don't have as much synergy between the underlying departments. So now if you have a finance director and you've got the assessor's office and the treasurer's office reporting in, you're automatically creating more synergy, which has to become more efficient. And I remember, I don't know whether it was last summer or the summer before, that we didn't have a clerk in the treasurer's office. And Jennifer had to close that office for a week so she could take a week out of the office. And that was the only week she had off. And
To be honest, she had to work remotely from that for that as well.
yeah, I think that's asking a lot of people. You know, so to me, it makes sense to bite the bullet. And we use excess levy capacity if we need to.
It seems to make sense functionally to make this change if we're going to make it at a time when we're going to hire.
A new TA, right, you're right, Andy.
Yeah, I think the time is perfect. I agree with everything you're saying, sir. I think that's why I'm urging the HR thing too, because I think the timing is right also on that.
it's a big pill,
But it's also, you know, there's a functional difference there and an organizational difference, which I think can have a lot of.
Thank you for taking these steps.
Any more discussion? Do I have a motion to approve the accounting department budget in the amount of
735.
275? My print is so small, I can't read it.
7:35.
735. I have to keep looking back at the spreadsheet.
Yes. you
Peter
do
makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Maury seconds. Any more discussion? Take a vote. Dean?
No,
No. Tom?
Yes.
Gar?
Yes.
Maury?
Yes.
Indy?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. We approved it 6-1.
Thank you.
We'll be relying on you next year. Don't worry.
I'm here for it.
we'll be here.
We need it in a transition year particularly. Next is the assessor's budget.
So here we.
That's a big increase.
An adjustment. The So we're making an adjustment to the head assessor's pay.
Why?
Market rate. Assessors are extremely rare to find. People are scrambling. And we're behind. So the market is outpacing what we're paying.
The impact of that is keeping up to date with our assessments, which then is the tax rate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a critical role.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's a real dearth of professional assessors out there. And everyone is trying to rob somebody else's assessor at the moment.
You're looking at assessor or treasurer?
Assessor, we're on the
Sorry.
assessors.
Okay, I thought it was treasurer.
So
And
we're proposing the $4,000 increase.
this says 6,700.
Right, 4,000 above.
Oh, okay,
The
6.48%.
Yeah.
Are our abatement requests relatively low?
They are, yes.
Okay, that's what
Yeah, well, I can't remember the last time someone won an abatement request.
Okay, yeah.
Our valuations are quite strong. They're accurate.
You're wondering why the $5 million house next to me is assessed at 1.9 million. It wasn't quite finished.
I think
Go ahead.
one thing that we might be able to look at, so if the assistant is 100% assessing, then we might be able to do some additional valuations in-house rather than rely on the vendor. Yeah.
Okay.
So there may be some savings there, but that's something that we have to sort of explore. And, it could be a year or so away to get her up to speed and trained.
And is that the total of the 20,000 between the reval update and professional services? Is that outsourcing or not?
The reval is that Patriots.
Okay, okay.
And that professional services, Andrew, help me out.
Sure, that's for like any additional assistance that they need. That's the professional services line you're talking about, the 4,500. And then like the reval update is like the outsourcing for the reval. It's like a 5-year payment. And actually next year is our full revaluation. So it's going to be extremely busy in the assessor's office.
Yeah. So like an abatement, we may use that professional services to help with the abatement hearing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we use the professional services, for instance, when we have properties like CST where we don't have other
Comparables or whatever.
comparables? Does that go out to professional services or is that done informally?
I'll have to double check that. I believe it's done informally.
Okay.
But I'll check.
Because I know when I asked about it, she said something about talking to people, but I didn't know
So she would,
whether that was
she would
formal or
talk-
informal.
yeah, more informal talking to
Yes.
her colleagues in another
I
town.
talked to, she was talking to Patriot about,
Oh, right,
Patriot
because some of the
properties.
other towns.
Yes.
Whatever that.
Yeah, Patriots.
Patriot properties. Okay.
I
Any
mean,
more?
we change names all the time.
I know.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Any more discussion, questions on the assessor's budget?
And Greg, the M6 and H6, those are under the assessor and administrative assistant. Those are some of our internal
Yeah,
classifications of
yeah,
different rates.
job class,
Okay,
yeah.
I just wondered what they were.
Do I have a motion to approve the assessor's budget in the amount of $233,277?
You do.
Peter moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Gar seconded? Okay. Any more discussion? Go to a vote. Dean?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Gar?
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Peter, and
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Okay. Building department. So I'm still confused. Because the assessor has an admin assistant. And now we're taking out the building department senior clerk. But there was only one body there.
I'm sorry, we're only,
So we have the assessor's admin assistant.
Yeah.
And we're eliminating the building department senior clerk. But there's only one person in that office.
so in the past, it was that yes, the assessor's clerk was also the building inspector clerk. And they shared, so the salary was divided between the two, am I speaking? Yeah, the
But
salary
this
was
is-
divided between the two.
Well, we're paying 60,000 to the admin assistant. That would seem like it was full time.
It is now, so that's the whole point.
That's what was budgeted for this year also,
So,
the 60,000. We increased it in this 2025 budget.
oh, I see, yes. But we did in the,
Assessors and
I know,
building department.
you know what page you're on in that.
I'm in the spreadsheet.
but what we've done then is, so in this current year, that 25,293 is being used to pay for the full-time land use clerk.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So,
And that person also works for the building inspector?
Yes.
the new arrangement will have the land use clerk assisting the building inspector. Yeah.
Rick, sort of a question for you, maybe we're going back a little bit. General fund revenues for assessors. Page back. It's 306,024. Are we anticipating in the current year that we'll see CST landing on this line?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have a one-time bump
There'll
on
be a
this
one-time
before
bump.
they hop over to real estate taxes.
And we're gonna increase the revenue projection by that amount, right? We discussed this before.
That's where I'm going with this.
We can, but it's a one-time bump.
It isn't. It isn't really, because we're gonna have the property taxes in future years.
Yes, but I would be reluctant, I would not recommend using that one-time bump for operating.
I'm not
expenses.
saying use it for operating, I'm saying that it is a revenue source. And we should be accurate on our revenue projections and use that 300,000 or whatever it is towards capital. For,
I'm fine with using it for capital.
what?
I'm fine with using it for
Yeah,
capital.
Yeah.
but it still would be in the revenue cap, so that it's available to use as funds.
We can do
For
that, yeah.
Because otherwise, if you don't include it as revenue, that's an additional I don't know what the number is, I'm saying 300. It's an additional 300 that the town can spend any way it wants.
Where it's rolling down to
Well,
reserve,
but-
but we're trying to kind of get a handle
It
on.
would roll into reserve, and then you would spend it the following year.
It's an underestimation of revenue and an
Right,
overestimation of expenses, and it all
Right.
rains down into
Right.
reserves.
And I just would like it for that number to be accurate. It's a growth, it's just a change in the growth number, really, isn't it? No, it's a building permit. Yeah.
First it'll be,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then once it gets built, it'll be new growth.
So how do we figure out that amount?
Well, this looks like it's for information only.
But this is looking backwards.
Yeah,
This
but
is a
I'm
backwards
talking
look,
about
it's
revenue
FY,
projections
so-
going forward. How do
Right.
we get a good handle on what that number might
What the
be?
building permit will be?
Mhm.
That's the front of the spreadsheet, right?
It's
Projected-
$6 per
projected
thousand.
revenues.
Yeah,
Right, so I can I mean, they're preparing their building permit, so we can ask them what they're gonna put down.
Good, yeah,
Okay.
that would be good, yeah. What their number will be. I know that not everything that they're spending goes into a building permit. All that little groundwork and blasting isn't included in the building permit.
Anecdotally, I haven't noticed any drop off in construction between now and 24, so I would think that we still have this. You know, it seems like we still have that same amount of construction going on.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But we just had.
Okay,
I would just like to make a quick comment, if I could.
yeah,
As far as like revenue projections and everything for estimated local receipts, I just want everyone to be aware that when I go to fill out the tax recap and put that in, the Department of Revenue reviews it, and I have to make sure I have, if anything's under or over 10% of the previous year actual received, I have to submit a lot of documentation to make sure that, we know we're getting that amount of money in, else they won't approve it. So I just want everyone to be aware of that process.
okay,
That's useful. That may help you in the estimation of how we deal with the general.
okay, thanks, Andrea. I would think with CST, we're gonna have the building permit before,
I'm gonna have to figure out the timing. I mean, if they submit before June, it'll be in this year.
right? Exactly, right, so we gotta
So,
figure that out,
we need
right,
to-
you're right,
In which case it'll be in the rain barrel.
right.
Sort of a question for
But
Andrea.
we could take that much more out of free cash for next year,
Right.
right? If we know what's gonna come in and go into it.
Yes.
So if we have a more than 10% budget increase, Andrea, on a line item,
For
Do we-
revenues.
do we get the same thing if the actuals come in, or do they not care? Or is this more of an auditor's question? So if we put in a line item budget for, say, building permits for 300,000 and it comes in at 600,000,
Yeah, they don't care.
they don't care.
They don't care.
But I will say so the following year,
They'll
I
wonder
could say
why.
I could say we're gonna get $600,000. So it's like, it's kind of funky, in that way, even though I know we were probably not gonna get 600,000. So it's like a year behind
Yeah,
in case.
kind of like the snow
Current year,
budget.
future year, yeah.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion on the building department? Do I have a motion to approve the $90,909?
Oh,
Andy moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Tom seconds. Any more discussion?
Are we satisfied with our building inspector?
Well, I
Sorry to bring it
think,
up.
I think we need a building inspector that provides more hours. I think that there's a lot of building inspections that are done via pictures. Last year I had work done on my house. There was no in-person inspection done. My contractor said, oh, we just have to send a picture. Right? And
My experience is similar, although I don't know the record. What I'm curious about is there's probably a job description for the buildings somewhere. And I wonder, whether, and it's not a criticism in any way, just, is it time for somebody to sit down and look at the job description and then say to the building inspector, are you doing, 2.1, 2.2, and 2.4 or not? And I'm sorry, I don't even really want to raise this as a big deal or anything. I'm just an idea, just a thought. It's not a request or anything like that.
The challenge would be, I think it'd be very hard to get a few more hours. I think it's It's either where we are now or it's full-time.
Yeah,
I don't think there's an in-between,
okay,
just in terms of trying to find that person.
Yeah.
So Paul's full-time in Rockport and he basically moonlights for us.
that's,
Now, could we find a second person to moonlight? I'm not sure. So Paul won't be able to give more hours probably because he's tapped out. So if you want more hours, then we're probably looking at a full-time position.
oh, I don't want to spend any more money, that's for sure.
Yeah.
How many people does Rockport have?
Population wise,
Yeah,
they're around
8?
75, 8.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
But also the building inspector, I guess, is going to be responsible for inspecting cell signal link, right?
Well, so on a big project like that, the project owner hires engineers who stamp, their license is on the line. They have to certify that it's built per spec. So you generally, I mean, that's what the schools were built. That's what we did. So.
I don't really want to talk about it.
It's difficult. It's really difficult, and I'm not aware of
I mean, this is a
anything really
conversation
going
we've had.
awry.
This is not a new conversation.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, it's a conversation we've had before, but we work really hard to put together, guidelines and laws and all of that. And frankly, you walk around town and you see things that are outside of the envelope. And there is no, and there is no circling around to correct that. And some of it is minor and you just sort of shake your head and go, okay, and some of it's egregious.
Yeah.
well,
And
Well, I look at that thing on C Street,
exactly.
is that kosher or not?
that's a utility trench. That's not building permit.
Right.
Hate to tell you, that's under DPW purview.
Okay,
Because I had that next to me, and my neighbors next to me said the DPW they were only gonna go down 4 feet, and DPW made them go down 8 feet for the water line. That's why they had to blast.
But
That's what they told me.
it has a wall, it has lights and it
I
was plowed.
yeah, I mean, it looks like the entrance to the resort hotel in Las Vegas. But,
Right.
I mean, I don't see it, I don't know, I'm not trying to make trouble for anybody, but
I'm just not sure what building inspectors do in other places. Whether they're just reactive or whether they're proactive.
It varies by community in my experience.
Okay, yeah,
For example, Westboro, Southboro, et cetera. That area, they seem somehow very proactive. They ask for a lot more from architects and engineers along the way of getting a permit. And they're pretty during the permitting construction process. Others, are a lot more relaxed. You don't see them. You don't ask questions.
do you think it makes a difference?
Not really. For example, the things that Westboro might ask for are dotting i's and crossing t's.
Yeah.
Doesn't substantive change design. But it can matter in our example if we feel like there is construction happening that is not being checked, and where like residential construction is more of a Wild West situation than commercial construction, because anybody that goes out and buys a hammer can do that work. So I think there's a lot more reason to looking at stuff like that.
I had footings poured next to me today. You can't tell me the ground was dry. Not my problem because it's much lower than me. It won't crush down on top of me. But it
I mean, there's stuff that happens inside of the wetlands. I mean, I can just say, you've spent 18 to 20 months following up on permitting. And you look around some other places and boom, there's a dock there, or there's stuff done. I mean, there's a septic system that was put in and pulled out. I mean, there's ridge poles that are above. I mean, I don't know.
In the dark of the night.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is the Wild West. And at some point you say, okay, well, why would everybody follow this if a bunch of people are not? So at some point, you just sort of have to figure out what are the losses here. And I think it's a good discussion to have periodically. We keep repeating the same result. But at least we're bringing it up,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Did we vote this one?
So we've had
No,
this
we're-
conversation.
We have a motion and a second, and then we had additional discussion. Is there any more additional discussion? I'll take a vote. Dean,
What are we voting on now?
on the
Building department.
building
The building.
department, $90,909.
And the land use clerk is now under the assessors? Is that what?
No, the land use clerk is under land use department.
Land use department. Yeah, I
That's a new department. Bruce. Tom.
Yes.
Don. Maureen.
Yes. Yes.
Andy, yes. Peter.
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Okay. It is 9:20. The next is treasurer. I'm gonna suggest that we pause here. And we go on to the next agenda item. Is that okay with people?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we got through a lot.
Good progress.
I like things too. The next item on the agenda is the status of the Masonic Hall Senior Center and the project funding. The reason I put this on the agenda is I went to a meeting on plans for changes to the senior center, we're doing additions and stuff. And it appeared as if they had already gone out with a request for proposal, I don't know, not an RFP, for design services. And when I looked at this year's budget and I looked at last year's budget, I didn't see a line item for design services for the senior center. And I also heard, so I don't know if this is accurate, that we have not yet closed on the sale, which makes me nervous about spending money on something we don't own. So that's why it's on the agenda. Do you have any information?
So the PNS is very close to being finalized. Should be finalized in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
At the same price?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, $1 million. Yep.
Condo documents? How are they doing?
Similar. They should be done at the same time. So we're close to completing that piece of it. And so we have gone out gone out on the street looking for design services. And want to have that ready to go as soon as we think we're able to. We did receive some state funding, received $50,000 grant to help advance the planning and efforts on the senior center. And that could potentially could be used for 2 things: get the designer going and get the fundraising planning
Fundraising.
underway as well. So we have we went out to bid on the fundraising, and we have proposals, and we have selected a firm that could help us do that.
And where's that money coming from?
That
The
state
grant?
grant.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So the goal would be to start the fundraising in earnest in the fall. Once the plan is all designed, identified, key donors, that sort of thing. Typically, you have sort of your soft, you get a lot of your funding secured before you go to the more public piece of it. But that hopefully was all done by September, and then the fall will be more of a public campaign for the fundraising. Simultaneously, it would be very helpful to be advancing the design work as well. So I'm certainly assuming that we close on the property by early April. All of this to make sense to keep going.
But I
So-
heard it was gonna be 200,000 for the design work.
Right. So to do final design, yes.
Okay.
So the select board hasn't completed their discussion, but they are interested in getting bond authorization for the construction. And then paying that, and the goal would be to pay off that bond and through the fundraising. So you would, if you had the bond authorization in April, you could do a short-term note for just the architectural work. And you would know by the end of the year, by December, how your fundraising was going. And if that was successful, then you could then proceed with getting a contractor on board for spring construction. And then the bond would be ready would already have been approved. So that's the thinking and how to proceed with that project.
And if the fundraising is not successful for some reason, we sort of pause it.
Yep.
all and
Yep.
Don't,
Hit the pause button and regroup.
I guess I have a concern that when the million was approved for the purchase, at town meeting, the stand was taken that the rest of it, the renovations would be funded through donation. I just wonder if the town issues a bond, what incentive is that for people to donate? And it just seems to me that, number one, I think it's gonna be much more expensive than was expected. And it just seems to me that you're gonna be pretty far along in the project and not have all the money you need, and the town's gonna end up being on the hook. That's my concern, whether it's valid or not.
Yeah, so it's not an uncommon approach for Gloucester, for example, on their library. That's almost a $30 million project. So the city approved the bonding with the understanding that the private library is paying back the town for that, when we were paying off that bond. They proceeded without all the money in hand. They went a little further than what I'm suggesting. They've gone ahead and issued the bond even before the money has been raised. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that we have the vote in order for things to keep progressing. And assuming, I want to count my eggs before they hatch, but I think that the fundraising will be successful. I think there's a lot of interest, and there are those resources out there that I think contribute. But I certainly understand the question and the concern.
But the thought is that this authorization for the borrowing be part of it. The April town meeting, April
Town meeting, yeah.
So it would be a separate warrant article?
Yeah, just standalone. Yeah.
And where does it fit in the very intricate pattern you created of retiring bonds and enabling or additional, you got a schedule.
Right, so to me, it's off sheet.
Okay, so that's what I thought. I just
because
looked at the
it's-
sheet. Yeah,
Because of the goal of
an
having
off sheet, yeah, okay,
being paid off through fundraising. So I didn't include it because of that.
got it. That's interesting.
And is there a risk that you wouldn't be able to use any of it for town services if it's paid for with donations for a senior center?
No, you're clear to your donors that, yes, this is for a senior center, but when seniors are not using it,
Yeah.
it's for other municipal uses. Trying to be very clear about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any more questions on this?
Well, it's everything, nothing is ever black and white. I mean, they don't not raise any money. They might raise some money or a lot of money, but not all, So, we're probably the town is probably gonna have to kind of, work on this a little bit here. Seems to me, I don't know, that's just
Seems to me too.
a needless comment, but,
Need to back up.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I think you would have to, basically promise to the voters that you'd be coming back if the fundraising was not 100% successful, before anything was.
before anything is done.
Yeah.
In other words, before any construction
Correct.
started.
The design
Well,
work
you
will
own the
all then be
But I
done.
think you'd have to go forward with design work, otherwise
Standing still.
you're standing still.
Well, unless you just did like concept
You-
design for the idea of attracting.
Correct. I mean, you need some pretty pictures to attract the donors. Some people argue that you actually are more successful in fundraising when people see construction getting underway. But I'm not suggesting that, but I have heard people make that argument.
I would assume somebody else has it covered and everything's good.
Right, so those are two sides of that coin. Yeah.
Where will the leadership be on the fundraising? Where does that sit? Where?
So a fundraising committee will be created, and that's with the leadership. So the Friends of the COA, for example,
Friends of the COA?
That'll be the mechanism to receive funds,
Mhm.
Using their 501c3 status.
Mhm.
And some of their members will certainly be leading the charge, and some, we anticipate some of the larger donors who will want to
Mhm.
be champions for this.
Has the select board indicated a recommendation one way or the other?
So they've had informal conversations and they lean towards asking for the bond, but they haven't had that formal conversation.
We're holding the bag.
And this is all done at prevailing wage, right?
Yep.
This project.
Public project.
Ouch.
Do we still have the $1 million in our account? Have we paid any of that out yet?
They're not paid in yet.
Oh, we can increase the interest assumption. Okay. Any updates from the town administrator? Do you have anything for us, Greg?
I gave you the bad news about health insurance.
Yep.
So you got that.
And did this spreadsheet we received today include that number?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Remind me again, what's the delta from what you put in initially into the spreadsheet and what's there now in the new draft?
100,000. Other updates,
Anything with the ClearGov?
Andrew, still with us, ClearGov?
I am, yes, I'm still working on it. I'm sorry it's taking me a long time to get at that. But it's coming along.
Is it a town issue or a software vendor issue?
At this point, it's a town issue.
Okay.
It started as a.
It's not, yes, yeah, it started as like an update. And then we realized like the account structures I have like two different numbers for essentially for like one account number in the software system that I use. And so that caused some issues in the update. So what we did is instead of doing an update, they migrated all the data over to the new platform. And like a couple of the years didn't transfer over. So I've been having to go through and like update all of my account numbers and funds for multiple years. So I don't want to release it with all the wrong information in it.
It just ballooned into a much bigger
Oh
project.
dear, sorry about that. Okay. So I think the thing we didn't see in this spreadsheet was the impact on the tax rate.
Right. So like I said, it's right around that 3.25 total
without the schools.
with the school,
Oh, okay,
with the school.
which is gonna change.
Right. So I'm
now-
thinking it's gonna, I'm thinking 3.5 to 3.75.
Well, I calculated the school at 3.45 tax increase at 1.1 million. I'm assuming
No, it's a full impact of, yeah.
for our assessment. Our assessment increase is 1.1 million, based on what I just got. And I'm, with the 3.3 billion in assessments, I'm assuming every 330,000 increase in expenses adds 1% of tax rate. That was the calc I did.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. I lost another thought. Oh, it must have been very
So
important.
this is gonna involve some interesting marketing in April,
We sure will.
you know, I mean, so
That's back to
we
the
think
communication
about, yeah, we think about this, we think about the bonding and the long-term capital stuff.
Yeah,
You know, and
I think there's a need for powwow
Yeah.
between you and the select board very soon.
I would say there should,
So
I think there's also enough change happening in your role and others too, that people may look at that and say, whoa, big change, and what are the feet on the ground and how much change has happened? So I think there's a big picture that needs addressing.
I also have some concerns on the overall timeline. Because Pam said today, because our town meeting is so much later, that they're not gonna approve the final budget until 3/18. So my question is, when is the FinCom report due? It's gonna be several weeks after that.
Can't be several.
First week of April, right?
I don't know.
So,
So you need 3 weeks to submit the draft or submit the final copy to go to.
to get it mailed, bulk rate.
Right.
We really need 4 weeks.
Last March.
So if they finalize, they're finalizing it on the 18th. I'm not, my assumption is that we'll have everything else wrapped up. That we have to plug in at the number, and either you're recommending it or not.
So we've been through this before, you know, back in the anti-camera era, and we basically said, if you want it in print and you want the best shot of this thing getting approved at town meeting, it should be done and in print. And there's always a lot of this, but at the end of the day, they did it. You know? And I don't know, going into town meeting without a recommendation written in print, stuff going out.
Why couldn't they do it by the 11th?
Exactly.
I think part of the challenge is they're going out to bid so late on the health insurance. How long does it take to get bids in?
And I think they're
We
also,
should have that.
they're
in the
fielding a
number.
lot of
They should
stuff
have
from
that in
different
the week.
towns.
Oh, it can be that quick?
I mean, they've already been working on it. It's not brand new. They're not just starting today. I'm actually meeting with her, Pam and Michelle tomorrow.
Okay, yeah.
I can push on this a little bit.
Really push for a date, a final date, and I mean, I
Hold a
know
special meeting on the 11th or something and get it done then.
Yeah, I mean, it
Don't wait
just,
2 weeks after the 4th.
I just think and we, are gonna have to make a decision. We're gonna have to make a recommendation on whether it's an override or not. We need to understand the whole budget, our portion of the budget before.
there'll just be a lot less discussion and confusion and all that if it's in print, distributed early, and everybody's behind it, as opposed to, here's a recommendation on town meeting floor, which is, it could have been formulated 36 hours prior, just.
Well, and last year, I think it was last year, where all the numbers changed. So the numbers were different than what was in the FinCom report, so I had to explain that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's not
Well,
good.
that's not a
that's
good
that's
one.
Not good.
That's not good. So it makes me nervous. Okay. So next week we have CPC. We have the rest of the town budget. We have to circle back around DPW. So perhaps we can do that next week, because this spreadsheet included everything.
There was one update, minor one. I got it the other day.
Okay,
It's $5,000 more for the housing production plan than we anticipated. It's just the application
oh,
is going to be approved by the committee on the 20th. So it's the day after our meeting, but it should be minor enough. But
okay,
would you like me to distribute the updated spreadsheet?
that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah. The CPC town, DPW. I talked to the fire chief this morning, and he indicated that he's gonna have some memo out to the select board and the FinCom within the next week or so. I think he's waiting for some input, maybe from the union or something, I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
it sounded like it might not be next week, but the week after. So that would put that on the 26th probably, to finalize the fire and the capital. Is the capital on this sheet? Well, it isn't good
It's
because
20,
that 200,000 there that has to be, so you're gonna adjust the
Yeah,
capital?
we'll give a new count.
Okay.
And it's the 27th, right, Sarah?
Oh,
That week, that's the Thursday.
yes, thank you.
And Greg, the capital in the spreadsheet, is that not adjusted on the 200,000?
No, the 200's in there.
It's in mine. I thought it was just paper.
No.
And everyone, I just updated the spreadsheet during this meeting, so I'll send it out later on
Fantastic.
tonight.
Great.
Thank you. Is there any way you can set it up so it can be printed with each budget on one page?
Yes.
I went in
You
and,
need to adjust that?
I had to adjust it page by page.
Yeah, I gave up.
I couldn't do it on the spreadsheet as a whole, but that could have been me. And so first it was coming in at 146 pages. And I said, I canceled.
Yeah.
And
Good thinking.
then I
Sorry
had,
about that. I didn't set it up to print,
I had to go
but I
through
can.
each page to change the margins, to make it landscape, and to make one sheet fit on a page. Maybe somebody more expert could have done it in one fell swoop, but I tried everything.
Well, I'll set it up to print, so before I send it out, it should be okay. It
Okay,
won't be
thank you.
146 pages. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to print it because when I'm on Zoom, I can't always, but I figured out how to do the spreadsheet. I have no clue if there's anybody on Zoom. Okay, so we have the auditors on 3.5. We've been asked if we can do a joint session with a select board on 3.3.
And select board meeting. Is that a Monday?
The Tuesday. No, it's a Monday.
Monday.
I'm scheduled to be away that day, but
Okay.
I might be able to zoom in.
What time is that on the 3rd?
Seventh?
So it'll be around 7:30,
7:30?
might be 7:30,
7:30.
7 or 7:30,
Okay.
depending on how much other business we need to do.
Are people okay with that?
It's fine here.
Okay. 3.5 is the auditors. We probably will have time to circle back around on things too that day.
I will not be at that.
Oh, you won't be there. Okay, we won't circle back around on things. So I would hope to wrap everything up except the school by 3:12. And I would like at that 3:12 meeting to understand better the tax rate just for the town portion and the funding for the capital stuff. And how that impacts the tax rate to see where our flexibility is. And kind of hold the school out of it for now.
If we can get the school to make their final decision on the 11th,
Right,
that would fit in nicely.
right, exactly. Okay,
Is there any indication on Essex pushback on the school, or are they?
Yeah, significant pushback.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so interestingly, on what was released today, which takes into account the new apportionment with the new equalized valuations, our percentage goes down a little bit because the Essex valuations increased more rapidly than ours did.
So that's going against them as well.
That's gonna be exciting.
So they're, based on this, by putting in the 26% for the health, the total increase in budget is 7.9%. Our share is up 6.96% and Essex is up 8.64.
But they're like
6.4.
more hatchet.
and but theirs is 8.
Theirs is 8.64,
Wow.
ours is 6.96, and the total is 7.59.
That's a over 1.5 spread.
That's big.
That's a big spread.
And I talked to a member of the school committee that said the school hasn't decided to eliminate that middle school principal.
They just haven't.
That's not gonna,
They
that's
just
not gonna
haven't
prevail. So the equalized value we live with for 5 years,
It's a 3-year average,
3-year
and
rolling average.
this year, so this year's is, the equalized valuations are only done every 2 years.
Right.
So for this year's assessment, we include 2 years at the fiscal year 24 and 1 at the higher fiscal year 26. So it's going to get worse for Essex as
is.
they get more years with the fiscal year 26 in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where I was going with this. It's
Yeah.
not gonna be a better picture.
Uh-uh.
What are you hearing, if anything, from Essex, Sarah?
I haven't heard anything. But, you know, we're only, we're 73% of the equalized valuation, but we're only 57.5% of the students of the enrollment. Because we're down to 650.
What was it, 57?
57.5% of students.
That's really dropped.
We're at 650 in there, and that's the 3-year average.
Yeah.
But for 2024, we're at 650 and they're at 477, which is even closer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to get better.
No. Going the other way.
That's why I asked you the Essex question. I thought they might be screaming.
I think there's talking with a couple of their FinCom people, 2 of them. There's a lot of push for that third-party audit.
Is there?
And the school committee has no appetite for that. I don't think the town of Manchester has any appetite for that. So this may push that date of March 11th out. It's all wrangling around that, which would be a shame. Hopefully they'll just stand the ground and say,
They just,
it's not gonna go.
Super town meeting, here we come.
Yes. This could be the year.
Motion to adjourn?
How about minutes from 2-5?
I read them. I thought they were excellent.
Yeah, I have no problem. If you want a motion to adopt them.
Motion to approve the 2:25 minutes.
Second,
Second.
all in
No,
favor?
I had comments. I had sent them to you. I had sent them to Gail. I made comments. I didn't know if they wanted to be redistributed, but, you know, it was about the ambulance billing. You know, I just asked about, whether it causes overtime if we get two calls. And, he had said, we don't recover that cost because we don't really get billed for the labor. So I just clarified the two things that I had said. That was the ambulance one, and then the deputy, the hiring of the deputy. I had mentioned how, you know, try to hire within, you know, the spiel I said. I just clarified what I said. So I had sent that to Gail and you. I thought they were significant.
Are they crucial to the minutes?
It captures what I said. I mean, what my intent, what I was saying is not captured what was written. So I edited it to include that.
Okay, we'll hold off on these
We're gonna
minutes
take
till
a
next
look
week.
at it next week. Motion to adjourn then.
Do I have a second? Peter seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, that was
Thank you,
very
Greg.
good